Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Mayor Steve Benjamin.
If you only knew how good you look right now, good afternoon. At this time, I'd like to thank all of you again for coming to this 87th annual meeting of the United States Conference of Mayors. I do want to recognize our officers, Vice President Brian K. Barnett of Rochester Hills, Michigan, and our second Vice President, Greg Fisher of Louisville, Kentucky. Also our past President, Elizabeth Couts, the Mayor of Burnsville, Minnesota, and certainly our friend, and our friend and CEO of our great organization, Tom Cochran. Please give all of them a round of applause. We will be officially welcomed by our gracious host, the Mayor of Honolulu, Kirk Caldwell, tomorrow at the opening session. We're so fortunate to have the opportunity to have our annual meeting right here in this beautiful and historic city once again. So please join me in thanking Mayor Kirk Caldwell and his entire team for all the work they've done. Also, how about a warm round of applause for the men and women serving our food here today, thanking them for their hard work. Now, please welcome the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Culture and the Arts from Honolulu, Misty Kelai.
E ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e o nā mea huna no ea o nā mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai kai ke mai luna mai e o nā mea huna no e au o nā mele e hou mai, e hou mai, e hou mai, e hou mai, ka ike mai luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au o nā mele e hou mai, e hou mai, e hou mai e. Aloha mai kākou, aloha. Founded in 1975 by Howard and Olana A'i, Halau Hula Olana, the School of the Living Hula, has grown to become one of the largest hula schools in the islands. Repeatedly, Halau Hula Olana has been recognized for its excellence in both keiki and adult hula competitions. Ladies and gentlemen, Halau Hula Olana.
Sometimes when life's piercing arrow shoots me to the ground, dreams come falling down, friends just can't be found. I don't worry, I don't wonder, I know what to do. I don't go crazy, I just go for you. Surround me with love, I need you beside me. I want you to hold and hide me when this world is closing in on me. Yeah. Surround me with love. Oh, I know I can make it. Whatever comes, you know I can take it. Just as long as you surround me with love. Who can say what comes tomorrow, what the future holds, what lies down the road? Heaven only knows. But there's one thing I know for certain, one thing that's true, one thing I'm sure of is I need you. Surround me with love, I need you beside me. I want you to hold and hide me when this world is closing in on me. Yeah. Surround me with love. Oh, I know I can make it. Whatever comes, you know I can take it. Just as long as you surround me with love. For every sunrise, I love you. I love you. Until the sun sets, I love you. I love you. And every moment hereafter, until the morning dew. Aloha, Yahweh, I love you. Yes, every sunrise, I love you. I love you. Until the sun sets, I love you. just as long as you surround me with love. Just as long as you surround me with no ka pua loke lau ke aloha, no ka ikau I ka veki. No ka pua loke lau ke aloha, no ka ikau I ka veki. Oala o nau na ia nei, oala le ia na e valea. Oala o nau na ia nei, oala le mai ia na e valea. E valea pua kume ole, I ka hana no e ao hoiho. E valea pua kume ole, I ka hana no e ao hoiho. Ka heipo o e na uhi aloha, ka ano ia kukuwai. Ka heipo o e na uhi aloha, ka ano ia kukuwai. Haina ia mai ka puana, no no green rose ke aloha. Haina ia mai ka puana, no no green rose ke aloha. No ka pua loke lau ke aloha, no ka ikau I ka veki.
All right, give it up again for the School of the Living Hula. Were those young ladies not amazing? As a father of daughters, I'm a sucker for these little girls, and they were just incredible. As we begin this luncheon, it is truly my honor to introduce the president of our sister organization, the National League of Cities. The Conference of Mayors works very closely with NLC on key priority issues from infrastructure investment, preserving and growing the community development block grant program, environmental protection and management, and so much more. This year, the National League of Cities is so fortunate to be led by the mayor of Gary, Indiana, and my dear friend, Karen Freeman Wilson. The work that Mayor Freeman Wilson is doing as NLC president will strengthen cities across this nation for years to come. Please join me in welcoming Gary Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson.
Aloha and good afternoon. First and foremost, I have to thank my longtime and dear friend, Steve Benjamin, for that gracious introduction, one of the greatest honors I have had has been to serve with him as he has led the Conference of Mayors, and certainly to Mayor Burnett and Mayor Fisher, and of course the iconic Tom Cochran. It is my honor to join you here today and to bring you greetings on behalf of our first Vice President, Councilmember Joe Buscaino, our second Vice President, Councilmember Kathy Maness, and our CEO, Clarence Anthony. Steve is right. Our organizations work so well together, and it is not only important, but it is necessary to advance the agenda that we all know as individuals to be important. Every now and then somebody will come and ask me, should I be a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors or the National League of Cities? And I tell them it's not either or, it's both and, because we are better together. The National League of Cities has dubbed this, in fact, we kicked it off Monday, as the Summer of Love. And I want you to know where that came from. As I talked and thought about what my initiative would be as the president this year, I thought about the dissension and the fighting and the mean-spiritedness that we had seen too often at the federal and national level. And I thought that as mayors, as local elected officials, we see our citizens, we connect with our citizens every day. And one of the things that we convey to them is how much we love our communities and how we want them to love our communities. And so this year, we are talking about the housing crisis. We're talking about how to encourage civic engagement among our citizens and how to create communities for every generation and how to lift up the challenges and triumphs of legacy cities. And no better way to do that than to demonstrate our love for our communities. You will see on Clear Channel billboards throughout our country the theme that is depicted here today, and that is of loving our cities. And what I want to encourage each and every one of you to do is to go to the website www.mycity.love to sign up, not only to show how you can show your love for your city, town, or village, but also to write a love letter to your city, to your citizens. Because at the end of the day, it is not about the cities or our position as mayors, but it is about the citizens that we have been honored to serve. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
She can't move too fast, so I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to add a personal note of thanks. I've known Karen since we were both our respective state parties nominees for Attorney General in 2002. And she has been a friend, a reliable and trusted confidant for all these years, and she is my sister and assisted all of us in this organization. We want to give her a plaque thanking her for her service as a leader in the United States Conference of Mayors. As many of you know, for decades, the United States Conference of Mayors has taken a strong position in support of civil rights and in opposition to racism and discrimination of all kinds. At its annual meeting 35 years ago, the conference adopted a policy opposing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and calling for the legal protection of gay and lesbian rights at all levels of government. In so doing, we became the first national organization to take such a position, and that was just the beginning. Our policy and work in this area has grown over the years. Please join me in welcoming the mayor of West Sacramento, who has been a strong leader amongst the mayors on LGBTQ issues and has an important announcement to make for all of us. Mayor Christopher Cabaldon.
50 years ago on this very day, a group of residents of New York rioted in Stonewall after a raid on the Stonewall Inn 50 years ago. Shortly thereafter, the mayor of New York City, John Lindsay, enacted the very first of the non-discrimination executive orders in the US. He was followed by mayors across the United States, taking the lead when no one else would, to establish policies that protected LGBTQ Americans from discrimination and from violence. When so many Americans across the country were dying due to the HIV/AIDS crisis, one organization stepped forward in their defense, the United States Conference of Mayors. Mayors across the country stood up for folks in their community who were hurting and who were dying and who were worse, subjected to discrimination and ostracism of the worst kind. And this organization stood by their side. When Ryan White stepped forward for AIDS treatment, it was this organization that made millions of dollars of grants to cities across the country to support HIV/AIDS treatment and services. The U.S. Conference of Mayors led the way in support of groundbreaking legislation against hate crimes, to stop hate crimes against LGBTQ Americans. And when the March on Washington came forward, it was Wellington Webb and David Dinkins, mayors of the United States, that stepped forward to lead the way. And when the voters of Colorado passed Amendment 2, stripping LGBTQ Americans of their rights to be protected from discrimination, the United States Conference of Mayors and their president from York, Pennsylvania, a Republican mayor, declared that the conference would not hold its annual meeting in Colorado. All throughout the history of the struggle for civil rights and equality, it has been the mayors of the United States and their organization, the United States Conference of Mayors, that has led the way, piloting things like domestic partnership, equal benefits, being a laboratory of democracy and of inclusion. And then the mayor of San Francisco stepped forward and, by the stroke of a pen, changed the course of history by granting marriage licenses in his city to widespread condemnation across even his own state and the country. But he was followed by mayors in city after city after city in the United States. Now, at this very same meeting in 2004, Mayor Newsom, Mayor Menino from Boston, and Mayor Daley of Chicago proposed a resolution to oppose the Defense of Marriage Act and to fight for marriage equality. That resolution failed. It was tabled by a vote of 46 to 44 at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in 2004. 4 years later, in 2008, the U.S. Conference of Mayors adopted Resolution 46, the same number of votes that had killed the marriage equality resolution. We adopted Resolution 46, which for the very first time for any mainstream elected officials organization in the United States supported not only marriage equality, but every single civil rights and human rights objective of the LGBT community in the United States. Now, what had changed? Well, part of what had changed was that LGBTQ mayors had come to the table. For so long, there were none of us. When I first was elected mayor and I was still in the closet, every mayor I saw come on television to say, I'm having a press conference, I'm Mayor so-and-so of the city of so-and-so. Every single time, that was followed by a pause and then, and I'm resigning. The climate in the United States for LGBTQ mayors was dark. And it was only as a result of this conference welcoming and embracing LGBTQ mayors and our stories that changed the course of this organization and the history of this country. Mayors like David Cicilline from Providence, Rhode Island, mayors from Chapel Hill, from Redondo Beach, from Gainesville, from Hartford, who entered the leadership of the United States Conference of Mayors for the very first time, showing the paradox of what it means to be an LGBTQ mayor in that time, when you might be elected by a popular vote, 50, 60, 70, 80% of your voters saying they believe in you as their mayor, and 50, 60, 70, 80% of those same people believing that you're going to hell, believing that you should not exist as a human being. This is something that very few mayors could understand, the story that we went through for so many years, being denied our basic humanity, our basic right to exist. And it was only in this room, only among mayors of this country who went on the journey with us, heard our stories, heard the stories of their own people, but in the words of their colleagues and their peers that helped to change the course of history. And that is why in 2008, when the group of LGBTQ mayors came to this conference and said, we are asking for marriage equality, not our allies any longer, but we are here to ask for it ourselves, and here's our story. Here's my partner. Here's the reason why I don't have a partner, because of these laws and these policies. And the mayors of the United States heard and listened, as we do every day. Because back home, folks knew their LGBT community not just as the LGBT guy from around the corner, but the coach of the youth soccer team, or the cantor at the church, or that annoying umpire at Little League that always made the wrong calls. That's who we are in our own communities, and mayors knew that. And so mayors from around the country started to tell our story. By the time our annual meeting moved to Indianapolis, and the state of Indiana passed the most sweeping anti-gay, pro-discrimination law in America, there was no question. The United States Conference of Mayors leadership said, we are not meeting in Indiana if this law persists. And at the same time, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana came out, and a new story was being told in the Midwest. And Indiana changed its policies because of the United States Conference of Mayors and the leadership of mayors like Republican Greg Ballard of Indianapolis and so many others. We made a difference in changing the narrative and changing the policies because we see real people. Then in Miami Beach, the very first gathering of the LGBT mayors officially occurred. And the Mayors Conference continued to work on things like the Inclusive Non-Discrimination Act, fighting for transgender children, fighting to decriminalize HIV, and building more and more allies, and more mayors coming to the table from Holyoke, College Park, Palm Springs, West Hollywood, Tampa, Lexington, Salt Lake City, Chapel Hill, Long Beach, Portland, Seattle, Redondo Beach, Turlock, Santa Fe, South Bend, and countless others electing LGBTQ mayors for the first, second, or the 11th time to serve their communities and being embraced in leadership in this conference. And then 1 year ago, in the city of Boston, when Mayor Marty Walsh invited every mayor in the United States to Boston Pride. And for the very first time, in one of the most profound demonstrations of the mayors of the United States, announcing not only to the people of Boston along that line, but to all of our people back home, what being a mayor was, what mayors believed in, and who we are to our soul, changed us. And I have never been so proud to march with so many mayors from every background, many of whom said they had never even considered going to a Pride March. But they couldn't not go if all the other mayors were going. And along the way, to see the people of Boston hug and cry, to see the mayors there from Alabama and Alaska and Hawaii and California and Reno and everywhere else around this country was a profound change. And at that moment, the LGBTQ mayors decided, it's time for us to come together in this conference. And at that moment, the LGBTQ mayors of the United States came with the tutelage of our Executive Director, Tom Cochran, to form the LGBTQ Mayors Alliance of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And today we are announcing the launch of the United States Conference of Mayors LGBTQ Mayors Alliance. I want so much to express on behalf of myself, but all of the mayors who have served from the LGBT community, our deepest gratitude and appreciation for this organization and for each of you in it who have at times questioned yourself and your journey, taken chances, taken risks, listened to our stories, and changed this country. Our alliance is open to all. This is an alliance anchored by the LGBTQ mayors, but we hope you will join us Monday morning for our very first launch meeting right here at the United States Conference of Mayors, as we continue to advocate on the policy issues in the face of a thing that can only happen in the United States of America. Today, when we are dealing with bans on transgender soldiers serving in the military, many states who continue to have laws about firing and evicting LGBTQ Americans, the federal government engaging in predatory tax audits of domestic partners, the possibility of the passage of the Equality Act, all of this happening in America at the same time when for the very first time an LGBTQ mayor is on the stage of the United States for President of the United States. What a moment this has been, and only in this country. And not only that, we're not stopping. This year, in the spring of 2019, the voters of Madison, Wisconsin, Tampa, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, and the great city of Chicago, Illinois, for the very first time electing lesbian mayors and bisexual mayors to lead their cities. What a terrific transformation in our country. And I know there are more. And I know that there are mayors in this room, because every single year there have been mayors that have come to us to say, I am in the process of wanting to reveal my truth to the people that I serve, to reconcile that paradox of the popular vote and the ostracism. And it is in this family of mayors, it will be in our alliance, that we continue to help mayors make that journey and to help their communities make that journey with them. So, Mr. President, President Benjamin has been a strong supporter and advocate for this alliance. So is our executive director, and so many of you. Thank you so much. I hope you will join us on Monday for the launch of the LGBTQ Mayors Alliance. And mayors have changed America by being America at its best and by telling our stories together. Please join us Monday, and God bless. Thank you all so much.
That, ladies and gentlemen, that's what you call leadership. Leadership. So thankful for mayors like Mayor Cabaldon and this incredible organization. Before we move on, I was not explicit when I gave the plaque to Mayor Freeman Wilson earlier. This is her last meeting with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And as I got involved in my personal feelings, I didn't have a chance to adequately help everyone appreciate what she's meant to this organization. She served the city of Gary since 2012, becoming the first woman mayor and the first African-American woman mayor in the state of Indiana. She's been an active leader in this incredible organization since she took office and serves on our advisory board. She's been our leader on community policing and other justice issues. She chaired our working group of mayors and police chiefs that developed a comprehensive set of recommendations in the months after Ferguson, many of which were included in the President's report on 21st century policing. She now chairs our Criminal and Social Justice Committee. She's been a champion for seniors, for children, and disabled, those suffering from alcohol addiction and other drugs throughout her entire career. As mayor of Gary, she's transformed that economy and greatly improved the city's infrastructure. She has always been there for us and will always be there for her. And I wanted to make sure I got that on the record. God bless Karen Freeman Wilson. Mayor Freeman Wilson, I know you're in the room. You can just wave. You don't have to come back on stage, but I wanted to make sure I had that on the record. God bless you. Thank you all so much. Next, I'm going to introduce our longtime friend and conference partner, Amy Hill. Amy is Walmart's Senior Director of Public Affairs and Government Relations. Amy is here with us today as we announce this year's Mayor's Climate Protection Awards. Amy has been our partner on the Mayor's Climate Protection Awards program since its inception more than a decade ago. Walmart and mayors continue to lead on climate protection. Walmart shows America's private sector how to lead on the path to climate action. Our mayors here today and throughout the nation, we show our other governmental leaders how to get things done. We're pleased to have Amy here with us today to honor another outstanding group of mayoral climate leaders. So please join me in welcoming Amy Hill. You can thank me too if you want.
Thank you, Mayor Benjamin. It is an honor to be here in Honolulu this week. Walmart is proud to again sponsor the Climate Protection Awards, our 13th year. We love the chance to see the innovation in your communities and to help recognize your great work. As we meet today, the political season is already starting to heat up. We had the first presidential debates in Miami this week, and as you may have seen in the news, Walmart even had a presidential contender come to visit us recently. Meanwhile, in our stores and on our websites, there's a daily referendum on what people think about Walmart. Are we meeting their expectations for service and price? Do they like what we sell and what we stand for? And increasingly, do they think we're a good corporate citizen? So as a government affairs professional, I've been thinking lately, what would our platform look like if Walmart were a candidate? What would we run on and what would we say? First of all, we'd run on our record. Back in 2005, our CEO at the time, Lee Scott, challenged us to make our size and scale to make a difference in the world, and we set 3 ambitious goals. The first was to be supplied 100% by renewable energy, the second to create zero waste, and the third to sell products that sustain our resources and our environment. So how are we doing? I'm proud to share we expect to source 35% of our electricity from renewables by next year, and we're well on our way to powering 50% of our operations with renewable energy by 2025. Thank you. We also now divert 75% of our waste from landfills, and we're working to achieve 100% recyclable, reusable, or compostable packaging for all of our private brand packaging by 2025. And thank you. Just a few months ago, we announced several new commitments that will help us address plastic waste in particular, which is top of mind these days, particularly for those of you who live near beautiful beaches like the ones here in Honolulu. Second, like any good candidate, we'd run on our vision for the future. Perhaps the biggest issue we face is climate change, and we're taking a big swing at it, just like many of you in your cities. Last year, we launched Project Gigaton, which is our commitment to eliminate 1 billion metric tons, a gigaton, of greenhouse gases from the global value chain by 2030, from agriculture to energy to product design. To put that in perspective, achieving this goal would be like removing more than 200 million cars from the road each year. And many of our suppliers have been eager to join us, more than 1,000 of them actually. To date, we've avoided more than 93 million metric tons of emissions towards that goal. But what I'm most excited about on climate is that even as Walmart's business has grown, our greenhouse gas emissions have gone down. We are proving it's possible to grow as a business while reducing our impact on the environment. Our vision for the future also includes creating even more opportunities for our workers. We've moved up our starting wages in the U.S. by 50% in the last 4 years, and we've increased an incremental $4.5 billion in pay beyond our traditional annual wage increases and for our U.S. store and club associates during that time. Thank you. We're also helping our associates gain the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in the jobs of today and prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. We're investing heavily in technology and our training academies, allowing those to gain skills that prove valuable, whether they're at Walmart or somewhere else. And last summer, we announced a debt-free college program for our associates. And before you ask, there's no catch. It really is an associate's or bachelor's degree in business, supply chain, or technology for $1 a day. And finally, our platform would include a call for a recommitment to your communities. We are on the ground in your neighborhoods in a way that sets us apart from many of our competitors. We see it all, good, bad, and ugly, and we know there's a lot more to do at the local level. We just announced an initiative called Walmart Rise, which is a new way for us to support our neighborhoods. To kick it off, we're giving an additional $5,000 to every Walmart store and distribution center nationwide this year, which equals about $23 million total. We're asking our associates to decide what they think will have the most impact. So Walmart's commitment to communities isn't new, but we believe we can engage a little more and make our relationships with you more personal. This is just the first initiative to come, so stay tuned. So in closing, I'm not asking for your vote or even your support, although we may ask for a meeting from time to time. But I do appreciate your attention today and the chance to work alongside you and your cities every day. We're working hard on these issues, and I know you are too. There's so much more we can do together. Thank you.
So thank you, Amy, and your company for your continuing support of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and our climate protection efforts. Now it's time for the presentation of the 2019 Mayor's Climate Protection Awards. Protecting the climate continues to be a top priority of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, as it has been for many years, and we all know that the issue is now more pressing than ever. The urgency to act on this issue is becoming more evident every single day in our cities. We're excited to announce that this year's Climate Protection Action Award winners recognize the leadership and the work of our colleagues. We begin our awards ceremony today with an honorable mention winners in the small city categories. Mayors or cities with populations of 100,000 or less. Our first honorable mention award in this category is to Asheville's Mayor Esther Manheimer, who's being honored for the Blue Horizon Project, a city-county collaboration with Duke Energy to reduce energy use and promote renewable energy to delay construction of new carbon-producing power plants. Please join me in recognizing Mayor Manheimer for this innovative program. Esther's not here with us today, so I want to move on to our next one. Our next winner is Mayor Rodney Craig from the village of Hanover Park. Hanover Park is rolling deep today. I like that. I want to recognize Mayor Craig for his solar installation permitting program. Mayor Craig is here to receive this award, so please join me in congratulating him. Our next awardee is the mayor of Lake Worth Beach, Mayor Pam Triolo. I feel like I'm at a high school graduation. I love this. Keep on cheering, guys. For her city's program to capture energy from the Gulf Stream called the Ocean Current Energy Program, as well as the city's solar farm on a former landfill site. Mayor, please come to the stage and receive your award. So next is Milpitas Mayor Rich Tran. He's here today being recognized for his citywide switch to carbon-free electricity. Mayor Tran. For the final honorable mention winner in the small city category, I'm pleased to recognize West Springfield Mayor Rich Reichel. for his Tri-City Public Carbon Sequestration Program, where his city and 2 adjoining cities have come together to preserve 15,000 acres of urban forest. Mayor, please come up and get your award. You guys have to love it. After years of doing this, we decided to become much more efficient, so we actually take pictures in the back, so we won't have to take pictures up front, but now we're doing both, so, you know, it's how things go. Please join me in congratulating all of our honorable mention winners in the small city category. And for all of us, it's important that we share these best practices. You can read more about these programs and other winners in your best practices report at your table, so please take that and take it home with you. Now I want to recognize our first place winner in this category. It's the mayor of Fayetteville, Lionel Jordan, who's being honored for his city's wastewater solar project, solar power and storage project. To learn more about this, please roll the video.
The City of Fayetteville is committed to climate protection, and we're really excited to receive this award. In our Energy Action Plan, we're committed to 100% clean energy by 2030. These solar panels helps us do just that very thing. In fact, it takes care of the 72% of the 100% that we set for 2030, and we have done that in the last year and a half.
As part of developing our Energy Action Plan, we worked with the stakeholder group at the University of Arkansas and analyzed where our energy was going. And we identified that 66% of our municipal energy use was actually spent treating wastewater. So we took a look at our 2 wastewater treatment plants, identified the amount of land we already owned, and were able to design a system to meet that energy demand on site.
We were able to work together with Ozarks Electric and a solar developer, Today's Power Inc., to execute a trilateral agreement in November of 2018. That trilateral agreement allowed for the installation of 10 megawatts of ground-mounted solar panels at the 2 wastewater treatment plants and 24 megawatt hours of associated battery storage at the 2 facilities. That's about 40 acres of solar at each facility. The project will generate approximately 18 million kilowatt hours per year, and we have an agreed rate for 20 years to buy that electricity at 0.3 cents lower than what we were buying electricity from Ozarks previously. So that savings over the 20-year life of the project totals up to $6 million worth of savings on the project. The city's initial investment in the project was around $700,000, and we'll recoup that investment in just under 4 years.
So this is the largest solar facility with battery storage in the state of Arkansas, and we save on our peak rates during peak hours of the day, saving our members and Ozarks Electric a substantial amount of money during the year.
I want to thank the United States Conference of Mayors for selecting us for this award. This is the second time we've won this, and I also want to thank Walmart for sponsoring this award.
Mayor Jordan couldn't be here with us today for the luncheon. He's asked his environmental director, Peter Nierengarten, to accept this award and speak for him. Peter?
This project is an example about how public policy can send market signals and drive action. I want to tell you just a quick story. In January of 2018, Fayetteville, Arkansas concluded a year-long stakeholder engagement process when our city council adopted Fayetteville's first Energy Action Plan. That plan outlined several ambitious goals and actions, including a goal of moving the city to 100% clean energy to power city government operations by the year 2030. 1 month later, Ozarks Electric Cooperative, Fayetteville's locally headquartered utility company and stakeholder in our Energy Action Plan process, approached the city with a project concept for a large solar array project on property owned by the city at our 2 wastewater treatment plants. Ozarks Electric knew that the wastewater treatment plants were the city's 2 largest energy-consuming facilities. They knew that nearby electrical infrastructure could accept electricity generated from a large facility, and most importantly, they knew that the city of Fayetteville had committed to 100% clean energy and that we were eager to act. Ozarks brought their solar development subsidiary, Today's Power Inc., to the table, and together we worked to develop a $23 million solar project that is the largest solar project on municipal property in the state of Arkansas. It offsets 100% of the electricity consumed by our 2 wastewater treatment plants, and it includes the first utility-scale battery storage in the southeastern United States. When this project comes online next month, it will take the city's clean energy percent from 16% to 72% clean energy. It'll save the city $180,000 a year, and it'll reduce the city's carbon emissions by 10,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. We believe that this project in our Energy Action Plan and our wastewater treatment project is an example of how policy adoption can drive market action. We look forward to working with our stakeholder partners to continue to bring this project to success and fruition. And in closing, on behalf of Fayetteville Mayor Lionel Jordan, I want to thank our project partners, Ozark Electric Cooperative, Today's Power Inc., Jacobs Engineering, the Arkansas Public Service Commission, the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust, and then I also want to thank the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Walmart for this prestigious award. Thank you very much.
This concludes the Small City Award, so please join me again in recognizing all of our winners in this category. Now I'd like to recognize our honorable mention winners in the Large City category. Our first winner is Mayor Marty Walsh of Boston, Massachusetts. He's being recognized for his extensive work on climate protection, especially for his Greenovate Leaders and Ambassadors program. Here in this initiative, Mayor Walsh is engaging with community members in order to spur direct climate action within their social networks. Mayor, congratulations, and thanks for joining us on stage. All right. Our next awardee is former Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings for the city's green energy policy. We're fortunate to have the new mayor, the newly minted mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson, with us to receive this award on behalf of the people of Dallas. Mayor Johnson was sworn in early last week. So it's amazing what you get done in 1 week, guys. That's what mayors get done. So we're so pleased and honored to have him here with us today. Again, welcome Mayor Johnson to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Our next awardee is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, who's being honored for his city's climate change environmental justice initiatives. Please join me in recognizing Mayor Fry for this honor. He's not here with us today. Also being recognized today is New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio for the city's Climate Mobilization Act, a series of laws that seek to transform the energy performance of the buildings in our nation's largest city. Some of you may have an idea where Mayor de Blasio is right now. He's probably in one of 4 different states, not counting New York. But a round of applause for Mayor de Blasio. Our final honorable mention winner in the large city category is Salt Lake City Mayor Jackie Biskupski. She's being honored for her 100% renewable energy goal, where the community electricity supply will be fully renewable by 2032. Mayor, congratulations. As Mayor Biskupski also leaves, I want to recognize her and thank her for her service to the U.S. Conference of Mayors on all the climate challenges before us. Now I'd like to recognize our first place winner in this category, the mayor of the City of Angels, Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti, for his electric vehicle purchasing collaborative. Please roll the video.
Los Angeles is so honored to receive this recognition from the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We are in some ways ground zero, a coastal city, a place where drought visits, where almost every natural disaster that can visit us. But we also are a place with great tools and a real soapbox to the world. We're the narrative and creative capital of the world, and whether it's through our entertainment industry or through the commerce that we have through our ports, airport, tourists that come through, and investors, we know Los Angeles can show the world that the climate change is something we all have a responsibility to confront, and we can win this war. So in 2017, we put out a simple request for information from all of our vehicle manufacturers. Over 30 cities came together, and we realized in the coming years we were going to buy over 110,000 vehicles. And we wanted them to be as green as possible, even zero emissions. Whether it was a light-duty truck, whether it's trash collecting trucks, whether it's a vehicle that we use for our police or our fire departments, all of that could go green. And then we formalized that last fall and actually put together a portal now where any city can sign on, purchase vehicles, get them at competitive prices that are available to the biggest cities in the smallest places as well. And already we've seen that go from a few hundred vehicles initially to thousands now that we expect in the coming few years, that our cities and our counties will be able to buy directly through this portal and know at the same time they're getting the best price and having the greatest impact on the environment.
LA is known for many things, including being the car capital of America. So when it comes to transportation and sustainability, the mayor's going big. And so we're not only making cities better, but we want to change the face of the car market. We don't want there to be any confusion. Cities are going electric. We are leading on climate change. We're seeing action happening on the ground in our cities, and one of the key things we can do is to electrify our transportation sector. And so LA doesn't have to work alone. We can work with cities across the country to make it happen.
You know, cities, join us. We are strong together, and no city, no town can do this on their own. We have to be able to take our collective buying power, our collective brilliance, and what our collective constituents are asking us to do, to stop the floods and the droughts and everything that we're seeing as a result of climate change and save this planet for the next generation. I think national governments have critical roles to play, but at the end of all of this, it will be local governments throughout the United States and around the world who ultimately have the power to and can save this planet. Thank you to the United States Conference of Mayors for this great award, for Walmart for sponsoring this, and for making a difference in the world today.
Mayor Garcetti, congratulations, and please come join us to share some remarks.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Aloha. So wonderful to be here, and thank you so much for this incredible award. You heard it upstairs, those of you that were at the press conference, but this is the best gathering in America, a place where we put everything else aside and fix what's wrong in front of us, envision what's right in the future, and make sure that we boldly show this nation that we are not a divided place, but this is a country still where everybody belongs, where everybody believes, and where everybody can prosper from the work that we do together. We all know, absolutely. I'm so proud to accept this award today on behalf of the City of Angels, this great American city that's the gateway for goods that come to your cities, that is the gateway for tourists who come from abroad to visit our country, a place where we tell America's stories through Hollywood. But the story that we're telling in Los Angeles today is about the two things that give Americans more anxiety than anything else today. One, will we have a future? Will this earth survive? And two, is there a place for me to prosper in the future? When we do things right, we know that we can solve both of those problems. And in Los Angeles, like cities around the country, we know these threats are not abstract. Talk to a mayor in the Florida Panhandle. Talk to the mayor of New Orleans or Houston. Look at the flooding that we see in our country, the snow that fell here in Maui, or the wildfires that have taken out entire cities in California. The evidence is everywhere. Mother Earth is telling us something, and that evidence is accumulating and accelerating. It hit home for me a few months ago when I met with the head of FEMA for the Western United States, and he said in the last 2 years, this country has spent as much on emergency relief from natural disasters as it had the previous 27 years. Let that settle in for a minute. The last 2 years was as much as the previous 27. So I don't care if you're a conservationist or a fiscal conservative. This is costing us all immensely. And we cannot let another $80 billion go by in the next 2 years. We can't ignore the facts that are before us. This is more than an existential crisis. My friends, this is the fight of our lives. And every single day that we wait, well, on one hand, the damage gets worse, the solutions get easier and cheaper. 60 mayors joined yesterday, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and a group that came out of this summit a few years ago called Climate Mayors. Now 426 mayors strong in 48 states. We're looking for somebody from North Dakota and somebody from South Dakota. Democrats, Republicans, independents, representing more than 71 million Americans who, when the administration said we're going to be the only country in the world to get out of the Paris Climate Accords, we said if he's out, we're in. And today we are accelerating that work. In Los Angeles, this recognition today shows our work 5 years ago when we set out to put the boldest sustainability plan forward in American history. And it was centered on 3 E's: the environment, the economy, and equity. A lot of people said, what are you putting those last 2 E's in there? Environmental plan should be about the environment. But we said if you're not addressing the economy, and if you're not addressing equity, you cannot solve the problems that drive our environmental degradation. Now we hear a lot of talk in Washington about a Green New Deal. I think people don't know yet what that means in Washington, but they don't have to look across the aisle. They just need to look across the country to see what that means. And in Los Angeles, we put a vision forward. The same year we reduced in 2016 our emissions by 11%, we reduced our unemployment by 14%. You see, jobs and environmental work go together. It's being led by youth, it's being led by communities of color, it's being led by folks who have been the unfortunate victims of whether it's bad air and high asthma and cancer rates, oil wells in your backyard, or folks who just haven't had the green space they deserve to be healthy. It is time for us not just to talk about being coal-free, but being carbon-free. In Los Angeles, we set 5 goals: to have our buildings be emissions-free, to have our transportation networks be emissions-free, to have a carbon-free electricity grid, and to have 100% recycling and 100% recycling of our water. Those 5 things, as I talked about yesterday with some of you at the Climate Mayors gathering, are easy to say, but immensely difficult to do. But human beings, if there's nothing else that defines us, we figure out a way to survive. We're often our worst enemy, but we are also our strongest friends and allies. And it is mayors and cities coming together to learn what's working best. You know the old saying that good mayors borrow and great mayors steal. It is time, my fellow thieves, to steal and to go forward with the boldest plans out there. We have proved once and for all that clean air and a stronger economy go hand in hand. One proof point in Los Angeles, investing in clean water and solar power, we're now the #1 solar city in America, has created 35,000 good-paying, middle-class, non-exportable jobs in LA. That's more than the entire coal jobs lost in America during that same period of time, and we're just 1% of this nation's population in the city of LA. So if you're not getting with this, you're not helping your economy, let alone helping the survival of your people. Whether it's installing solar panels or retrofitting buildings with cool roofs, or at our port, which together with our sister port of Long Beach, brings 43% of the goods that come into all of your cities in America by sea, where we pledge to have the first zero-emissions port in human history, or I should probably say in modern human history. I'm pretty sure the Phoenicians were zero emission, but the first modern zero-emissions ports anywhere in the world. Because when America leads, the world will still follow. And when we listen to the best practices around this country, we can show folks that this is a country that can do big things again. I'm so glad the video also showed you all about our electric vehicle purchasing collaborative. And I invite you to be a part of it. If your city isn't signed up, you're losing money and you're not getting with the electric car revolution. We have this year set in motion by the end of next year over 2,000 cars that will be a part of it. 127 cities and counties will be a part of that. And we just announced yesterday that we are putting school buses through this collaborative as well. That is nearly 500,000 vehicles in the United States of America, over 1 million miles a day that they travel. Think of what we could save in terms of our emissions if we move all of our school districts to electric vehicles. So bring your school boards into it and bring your leaders from your local schools into making sure that we show that progress and the power of our partnerships. Speaking of partnerships, there's another area where we can collaborate, where we can help not only our cities, but help our country as well, and that's with infrastructure. And I was so proud to represent the U.S. Conference of Mayors at Chairman DeFazio's hearings to kick off an infrastructure plan for America. And I want to thank Chairman DeFazio, who we'll hear from a little later, for inviting me to weigh in together with our former Transportation Secretary, what? Schuster. No, it wasn't Schuster. LaHood, Ray LaHood, sorry. You turned 48 and you started having these moments. And also the new governor of Minnesota. And the three of us sat there for a few hours saying, it is time now to put down your partisan pitchforks and do something for America's infrastructure. You see, we can't confront our climate crisis if we don't confront our infrastructure deficit. And negotiations may be stalled in DC for the moment, but it is our job as mayor to push forward our representatives to get the job done. The resilience we need and the adaptability to save lives. Who cares how many miles of roads we pave if our cities are underwater? Who cares how quick our response times are for 911 if our firefighters are off fighting fires that endanger our cities? And I know how much I have benefited along the way from your work and the work that we've done together between the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Accelerator for America, a nonprofit I helped found with a number of mayors in this group, to make sure that while Washington stalls, we continue moving forward. So if your town is looking at an infrastructure package in the next year or two, we have money to help you. Get it on the ballot, get it passed. There's a lot of talk about $250 billion for infrastructure. The same night we elected a new president, America's cities passed $230 billion on our own. So let's demand the cavalry, but while we're waiting for the cavalry, let's get the job done as well. So 3 quick things on the end. When you're looking at the environment, let me give you just a few pieces of advice that I've learned over the last few years. First is go big. Go big. Don't worry about the naysayers and keep pushing forward. I guarantee whatever seems radical today in terms of our goals will be considered conventional a year or two from now. When we took a zero emissions pledge in LA a few years back, people thought we were crazy. And lo and behold, states and cities around the country and world now have followed that lead. In fact, it's the demand of so many young people now that their cities, states, and countries do the same. Second, don't be afraid of making a mess. I know they don't tell us to do that in politics, but when it comes to the environment, some of this work is going to be messy. Some people are going to say, let another city figure it out first before I do, but it's better to fail forward and to be a part of the architecture. Whether it's the rolling out of electric scooters where people truly are getting out of cars, but we want to make sure they're safe and that we can control that, figure out a way to get to yes instead of no. If we figure out revenues to create more bike lanes, if we can figure out ways to make sure that people aren't opting into cars to be by themselves, that's good for all of us. And third, get involved. If you're not already a member of Climate Mayors, please join us. And Marty Walsh and Mayor Rogero and Mayor Turner, the four of us, as chair and co-chairs, want your city to be part of Climate Mayors. And thank you again to Mayor Caldwell for hosting us to have that meeting here yesterday. It was astounding. I have 1 minute and 30 seconds left, and I want to end with a poem. I know we did a little bit of that yesterday. I gave you a preview of Marge Piercy, one of my favorite poets, yesterday. But this, in many ways, encapsulates what I think about America's mayors. The poem is called To Be of Use. She writes, "The people I love best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with the people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but who move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire must be put out. The work of the world is as common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine and oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Thank you for being those workers of the real work of this world and of our cities, and making use of our time on this earth. It is a gift to us. Let us treat it that way, and we will pass it on to our children. Thank you all so much.
That was beautiful as usual. I want to thank Mayor Garcetti and all of our 2019 Mayor's Climate Protection Award winners. Thank you for all that you do to help ensure a more climate-friendly and sustainable future. Just as a point of personal privilege, you never want to kill a fly with a sledgehammer, but I want to remind everyone that our guests and our partners are our guests and our partners. And we will make sure that everyone who comes here is treated with civility and respect when they're in our hall. We're mayors. We always encourage a robust exchange of ideas, even those that we disagree with our colleagues on. But let's use a proper time, place, and manner to share those ideas. And if you disagree with this, then come see me afterwards. All right? Now I'd like to introduce the mayor of Gresham, Oregon, Shane Bemis, who's going to give us an update on our Mayor's Youth Involvement Task Force and to make a very exciting announcement. Mayor Bemis chairs the task force and has been doing an incredible job to empower young people in our cities and get them engaged with City Hall. So Mayor Bemis.
Good afternoon, mayors. Thank you, Mayor Benjamin, and thank you for your leadership on this very important issue. Mayors, it is a great pleasure to be here to speak about our nation's greatest resource, our youth. I'm very excited to announce that Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and the Mayor's Youth Involvement Task Force will be co-hosting the first ever U.S. Conference of Mayors National Youth Summit in Los Angeles, July 25th through the 27th. Mayors, we're asking you to bring 2 youth leaders from your communities so that we can work together to address the national challenges of America's young people. We're providing flights and hotel accommodations on a limited basis to make it easy for youth to participate. Mayors and youth will share ideas and craft tangible solutions that can be implemented in their cities. We have also had guidance from young thought leaders like David Hogg, Vickiana Petit-Home, Jamie Margolin, Joseph Toma, and others to help shape the programming for the summit. We thank them for their support and for their leadership and participation. All of the work we do as mayors is critically important, but I promise that nothing is more important than the work that we do to empower America's youth. You don't want to miss this incredible opportunity to consider our future alongside America's young leaders. Please turn your attention to the screen for a quick video inviting you to join us for this remarkable event.
As Mayor of Los Angeles, it's my pleasure to invite you to join us in the City of Angels for the first ever U.S. Conference of Mayors National Youth Summit.
The Mayor's Youth Summit is an important opportunity for young leaders from across the country to engage with mayors and address the most important issues of the day.
This is where we're going to bring our youth together to go over critical issues and develop some plans.
Mayors and young leaders will share ideas on empowering our youth and making them a part of the discussion in City Hall and in the broader community.
We have mayors bringing youth to come together to work with mayors on big issues
I'm excited to hear what comes of this conversation between mayors and our young people.
We know as mayors, our nation's young people aren't just the leaders of tomorrow, they're truly the leaders of today.
So we're asking each mayor to join us for the summit and bring 2 youth from your cities to be a part of the conversation and part of the action.
Join us for the first ever U.S. Conference of Mayors National Youth Summit in Los Angeles from July 25th to the 27th.
And to get started, I encourage everyone to go to usmayors.org and register now. Thank you, and I'll see you here in Los Angeles.
I'd like to thank the conference for chartering the summit and thank our sponsors, United Airlines and Bank of America, for making all of this possible. For more information, please go to usmayors.org and visit the U.S. Conference of Mayors booth out in the lobby. Space is limited, so please make sure you register. Our work with the Mayor's Youth Involvement Task Force is ongoing. We hope that you will join us this Sunday for our youth breakout session, Empowering America's Youth Through Civic Involvement, to share best practices on how to engage young leaders. And when we go home, mayors, we're also asking you to do a couple things, 3 things. 1, we want you to build a youth council that empowers young people and allows them to assist with real policy issues. 2, we want to work with youth to host town hall events that amplifies their voices. And 3, work with youth to launch a voter registration campaign so that their voices can be heard. Last year, we approached the conference and asked to form a youth involvement task force. As mayors, we know that how vital it is for the participation of our young people in our civic life. And as you'd expect, President Benjamin and Tom Cochran enthusiastically agreed. In the past year, we have built the foundation and the membership of our task force, which I truly hope you will all join. We've surveyed America's mayors and produced a best practice report for involving young people in the leadership of our cities. We convened in South Bend, along with our friend Mayor Pete, to hear from South Bend's Youth Commission and discuss the issues most important to them. We've also collaborated with organizations like UNICEF and the Children's Funding Project to coordinate and advance our work. We are incredibly proud of all of that we've done, and we look forward to working with all of you. Now it brings me great pleasure to introduce you a friend of mine who shares my passion for empowering young people. The co-host of our Mayor's Youth Summit, Mayor Garcetti, is no stranger to the importance of engaging our youth, and he has eagerly stepped forward, rolling out the red carpet in the City of Angels. Please join me in welcoming the summit's co-host, Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Hi there, it's me again. Steve Benjamin lost a bet, and so he had to put me on 4 times, 2 recorded and 1 live in a single program. My apologies. But we're so excited to host this summit in Los Angeles. I hope you all will come out. It's an amazing city to visit. And in Los Angeles, more importantly, it's a city where young people are really leading the movement to end gun violence. When young people in my city impacted by shootings and killings right there in their own backyards and front yards, came together with survivors of Parkland and others and asked for me to establish one of the first youth councils on gun violence. I said yes right away. And I have to tell you, it has been an amazing and invaluable group of people who are now my chief advisors on gun violence. They've launched an entire advertising campaign with a PR firm in Los Angeles on our bus stops and in our bus shelters and other places where you see their voices and their stories, as well as their activism that's coming together as well. And to grow this movement, this first ever forum is a real chance for you to bring a couple folks from your own town, not just to talk about gun violence, but to empower young people to really seize those levers of government. There's going to be breakout sessions on gun violence, but also climate change, student debt, and voter registration. And it's just one more opportunity for us to all learn from our youth. So I hope you all will come out to LA. I promise you a great time. Listening to our young people and learning how to follow, not just to lead, is a critical part of our own success. It will only strengthen our leadership and accelerate the work that we have to do. So spread the word in your city, and I'll see you at the City of Angels. Thanks, everybody.
Thank Mayor Bemis and Mayor Garcetti. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our closing luncheon speaker, House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee Chairman Peter DeFazio. First elected in 1986, Congressman DeFazio is now the longest-serving member of the House in Oregon's history. The committee Chairman DeFazio leads is so important to our work as mayors and indeed the nation. It oversees brownfields, water infrastructure, airports and aviation, clean water regulation, surface transportation, even federal buildings. Chairman DeFazio shares so many of our priorities that we're so lucky to have him in this leadership position. He is a top champion in Congress of empowering airports to greater access to passenger facility charges to finance more of our future airport capital needs. He's a champion of spending the user fees deposited into the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. He's a champion of ending the deficit in our Highway and Transit Trust Fund. And he's a champion of investment strategies that move us forward on decarbonizing our transportation sector. Chairman DeFazio wants mayors to be working with Congress on these issues so much that he invited me to come before the House Democratic Caucus retreat to share our views on infrastructure. Mr. Chairman, we're so pleased that you've traveled all the way to our annual meeting to share your thoughts on how mayors can help you move through Congress and the administration of the important work of investing in our nation's infrastructure. So please join me in welcoming Chairman Peter DeFazio.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Just arrived, and I'm looking forward to a couple of days here. No one knows better than you the challenges that are facing our transportation network and our infrastructure. Mayors, I was a county commissioner. You're closer to the people and closer to the problems, and you get the phone calls at night about those problems. So you're right on the front lines. That's why I invited your president, Stephen Benjamin, to join me at the Democratic Issues Conference in April to talk about the needs to invest in America's infrastructure. We need to invest more in roads, bridges, transit, water systems, airports, restore our crumbling and outdated and overburdened infrastructure. At the same time, thank you. At the same time, we can't keep investing in the same ways and expect different results. We need to transform federal transportation policy to modernize what and how we build. We need intelligent systems that can help mitigate congestion without expanding our roadways. We need to be able to move people and goods more safely and efficiently, build more resilient facilities with longer lifespans to withstand the changing climate, and invest in electrification and carbon reduction. There's no avoiding the biggest single challenge, which is to secure a dedicated, sustainable revenue. The Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, so-called FAST Act, expires on September 30th, 2020. Now that may seem quite a ways away, but given the inefficiency of the United States Congress, that is right upon us. And at that date, we won't be able to just roll the bill over because that would mean a reduction in spending. The first year would only be $4 billion, although since we need to increase spending, that's going to hurt a lot. The next year would be $17 billion reduction. So we have to address the shortfall in the Highway Trust Fund. You know, this used to be kind of a wonky topic, but now this is something that most Americans get. If you look at the polls, people really want to see us come together across the aisle, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whatever, and work together to rebuild the infrastructure. The federal government has been shirking its responsibility while 31 states have raised their gas taxes and registration fees and others to raise revenue since 2013. In 2018, 70%, and many of you were directly involved in this, 70% of local road and transit ballot measures passed, more than 400 local funding measures and 30 public transit measures. Red states, blue states, purple states alike. And not a single, and this is why I keep trying to tell my colleagues in Washington, not a single elected official that I'm aware of has lost their job because of making the case and getting authorization. And, we did a lot of question and answer, and they said, well, look, you got all these people who want to do this, you have business, industry, individual, go on and on. I said, why can't it happen? And they kind of had me stumped for a moment. I said, well, wait a minute, okay, I can give you an image here. And so actually once I got to go to the South Pole. And I was at the South Pole. I was by Shackleton's Hut. We had a day off from the work because it was too windy to go out on the icebreaker that day. And I was down there with the Coast Guard. And there were always penguins just shuffling around, and they're on the edge of this cliff. And they had just molted, and so therefore they could go back in the water, but they hadn't eaten for like 7 weeks, and they're really hungry. And they want to go in the water, but they're all standing there. They have these things down there called leopard seals, which are really mean, really fast. They can catch a human on ice. I mean, and they love to eat penguins. That's their favorite diet. So all the penguins are standing there just back and forth, back and forth. It's like, God, we got to do this. But no, what's going to happen? So finally they like push one guy off. And then they all look over, and then they all go, like this, because he didn't or she didn't get eaten, so they all dive off. That's what I'm trying to tell my colleagues in Washington. If we do this together, nobody's going to get eaten. No one's going to lose political advantage. You know, we haven't adjusted the excise tax since 1993. And so the buying power has dropped 40% with inflation. And then, of course, we have more vehicles on the road, traveling more miles, but the vehicles are more efficient, so they're using less fuel. So even though theoretically you would think, wow, we got a lot more people out there driving a lot more miles, we'll have more revenue. No, I mean, actually, revenue has continued to be totally inadequate. We've had to put $144 billion from the general fund and other imaginary places. We're actually borrowing money to put in the trust fund right now since 2008. And over the next 10 years, it's predicted will be $176 billion, $17 billion a year short. Now, this is just for existing investment, which is totally inadequate. I'll get to that in a second. The federal, the needs from, our investment has decreased 20%. DOT says we need $836 billion backlog of unmet capital investment for highways and bridges, $100 billion, and this is just to bring things up to a state of good repair, not to build out, to mitigate congestion, build new projects. Same with transit, $100 billion to bring transit rail up to a state of good repair. We're underinvesting by $37 billion a year in highways, $10 billion a year in transit. There are 47,000 bridges on the national highway system that need substantial repair or replacement, let alone the bridges you have in your local communities that are critical and need the investment. Now, for a brief time, about a month and a half ago, I was pretty excited we might get this done. We went to the White House at the request of the president, and we sat there, and he had some opening issues, but we got past those. And then the president turns to the speaker, and he says, well, Nancy, what do you think? And she says, well, Mr. President, we really need to increase our investment in infrastructure. She says, I'm thinking $1 to $1.5 trillion. And the president thinks for just a little briefly, and he says, no. And we're like, oh, God. And then he says, 1.9 trillion. And we're like, okay. And he says, no, wait, 2 sounds better. 2 trillion. We're like, okay, we're on board. So he bid himself up. And then we got into more specific discussion because there's some people who want very, very broad definitions of infrastructure. And we agreed on transit, highways, bridges, wastewater, drinking water, and broadband. The president was on board for all those things and all those investments. And then we got to the point of, and this is where the penguins come in, like, okay, how's this going to happen? And Senator Schumer's pushing really hard. Well, Mr. President, you've just got to go out and tell people you're going to raise the gas tax. And then, like, the president's like, So anyway, I finally said, look, why don't we, let's have another meeting. Everybody put their ideas on a piece of paper. No names on the paper. Throw them on the table. We go through them. We pick some, and we all walk out the door together. And there's going to be no disadvantage, and we're going to get something done for the American people. No one can use it politically. Unfortunately, when we came back for the next meeting, the president's chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, who was a founder of the Freedom Caucus, he basically doesn't believe in government. He certainly doesn't believe in federal investment in infrastructure. In fact, he wasn't at the first meeting, luckily. He was in California, but he managed to, get press from California saying he didn't support what the president and us, what we'd agreed to. And then he came back and he started a whole campaign in the White House. He brought in Grover Norquist and everybody else, and next meeting with the president went south. So, but recently, just this last week, the president was talking again to the speaker, and he expressed interest in doing infrastructure yet again. I think he really wants to do it. And so we're hopefully we'll be meeting in July and try and get to some decision on revenues. So I can't give up on this. We also, as we write the new 21st century, first 21st century really in my mind, even though the FAST Act was enacted in this century, but really looking to the future, we've got to look at new revenue options for the future. We're going to have more and more penetration of non-fossil fuel vehicles. So we're going to, I would like to do a national pilot for vehicle miles traveled. My state has done a couple of pilots on this issue. And we could move forward pretty quickly in the trucking area with vehicle miles traveled as a substitute because you don't have the privacy issues because all the heavy trucks now have electronic recording devices in them. There are with individual vehicles, there's questions about how you're going to bill, how you're going to collect, and privacy issues that have to be resolved. But we need a 21st century transportation infrastructure bill. And the few things we can do, we want to harness innovation. We want to have smart infrastructure. I don't know how many, I don't think anybody in the room is going to raise their hand if I say this, how many of you haven't been frustrated sitting in a traffic light when no one's coming the other way? And, there are systems that actually do real-time adjustment of the lights depending upon traffic flows. We've got to look at deploying more and more of those. We've got to get more use out of our existing infrastructure. Metered lights and vehicles that can read the metering. Those three things together, actually, they estimate could save 6 to 10% of the fuel that's burned every year by mitigating people idling in traffic and congestion, also obviously mitigating air pollution in your cities. We need to look at a whole range of mobility options. We just had a roundtable on mobility issues and all the new alternatives in mobility. I wouldn't ride a scooter around here. It's pretty congested, but I don't know if they have them. They have, by the way, I keep bothering the scooter people, and they now have invented inflatable helmets that you can put around your necks because all these people riding scooters are a disaster waiting to happen. And I've ridden them a couple of times, but we need to prioritize safety investments. A number of cities have adopted Vision Zero, which I believe originated somewhere in Scandinavia, I think Sweden. We get a lot of good jobs out of this, but we also have to focus on job access and training. And Los Angeles is going to actually have a focused residential high school for people to get skills to go into infrastructure and construction, things that relate to infrastructure. We have to build it so it lasts longer, it's more resilient. I was recently up at Oregon State University, and they're doing some incredible work. A major source of carbon pollution is cement kilns, and there are processes that can use the existing kilns that will reduce the pollution 50%, and then they can go beyond that. They've actually invented a concrete negative, carbon negative concrete, which is, I can't explain it, but you can get in touch with them and ask about it. We have the strongest Buy America requirements of any part of the federal government, and yet there are still some loopholes, and I'm going to be plugging those loopholes, and not to be mean to anybody who's here, but anybody who's dealing with CRRC. They are predatory. They are owned and run by the Communist government of China, and they want to run our manufacturers and others who are manufacturing here out of business. And they do as much value added overseas as they can, and it will just be yet another industry lost. So you should not be contracting for their vehicles. We also have to look at protecting our natural resources. My Republican colleagues keep saying we need more streamlining. We've done streamlining in every major transportation bill, the last 3 bills, and DOT hasn't even implemented all the streamlining we did yet. I say, well, how about we see how well the streamlining we've already adopted works before we decide we need more streamlining. The most frequent cause, according to the experts, of delay of projects is funding, not environmental rules or public public review. So, you know, as mayors, you certainly know the cost of doing nothing. Your infrastructure, it doesn't deteriorate in a straight line. You know, it gets worse quickly. The costs go up very quickly. So if you add the money now to do some rehabilitation, you're going to save a lot of money in the not too distant future. But again, you know, we haven't been great partners on the federal level, and I intend to do better on that. And a lot of the country's wearing out. Amtrak just accommodated the committee. They put together a special train with a viewing car, and we viewed all of the best engineering work that was done between 1872 and 1930 in the Eastern Rail Corridor. The tunnels under Baltimore were built in 1872. It is raining inside the tunnels, and you know, they're brick. We don't know how much longer they'll last. The Portal Bridge in New Jersey, when they open it for ships, when they put it back in place, they have to send out a crew, including a really big guy with a sledgehammer to knock it back into place. And then we got a special midnight tour of the gateway tunnels under the Hudson, which were updated in 1930. Unfortunately, they flooded during Sandy, and the concrete has been penetrated by saline, by salt water, and the concrete is spalling, and every once in a while the 12,000-volt cables short out, and it takes about 5 days to repair one, so they need to be replaced. They say, well, we can't afford it. Well, it costs about $16 to $20 billion. If the tunnels fail, it's going to cost $27 billion a year, and it'll take 4 or 5 years on an emergency basis. So if you don't invest now, we're going to pay one heck of a bigger bill later, and I think that you are very well with that. I don't want to go into it longer here, but let me just say I've introduced 3 bills. Trying to deal with the fear of the gas tax, I've introduced a bill called a Penny for Progress, which would just index the existing gas and diesel tax, cap the annual increase, no matter what inflation is, at no more than 1.5 cents a gallon a year, and we could bond $500 billion over the next 10 years to not only fill in the hole in the trust fund, but to substantially increase spending on needed projects, begin to bring things up to a state of good repair and build new capacity. And I always say to my colleagues, raise your hand if you think you're going to lose your election if gas goes to 1.5 cents a gallon. Now, no one ever raises their hand, but I still haven't been able to move it. The Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, we collect a tiny, you probably don't know it, but there's a tiny ad valorem tax on every imported good you buy that came in the container. It's minuscule, but it raises a substantial amount of money. And for years, Congress has every year been underspending the trust fund. So there's now a $10 billion balance in the Treasury. And yet, our largest harbors are at about 40% of authorized depths on a daily basis. I have smaller harbors where the jetties are failing, they're silting in, and it's like we don't have the money. Yeah, we have the money, we just have to spend it. And this seems like a no-brainer to me. I've moved it out of committee twice, but Paul Ryan, the former speaker, had it taken out of the bill twice. You know, it's even in Washington, D.C., you can't spend money that you collect from people on things that you collected it for. But I've moved that bill out of committee, and I'm going to move that bill through the House this summer, and this speaker is not going to take it out of my bill. And then, you know, we have airports. Many of you have airports, the airport concerns. Congress, I was the original author of the passenger facility charge on the Democratic side. It was a bipartisan proposal, user fee at airports. And we haven't allowed airports to increase that fee since 2001. You know, and the airlines will tell you this is like their number one issue to beat me on this issue. They say if I raise the passenger facility charge $2 or $4 per boarding for passengers, no one's ever going to fly again. It's totally price elastic. And I said, well, what about when we were doing the last FAA bill and you all raised bag fees by $5? Oh, that's different. And I said, yeah, that's different. That goes in your pocket. And you don't pay any tax, you don't pay ticket tax on it, so it's much more gravy than anything else. So I'm going to try and beat them. It'll be an interesting struggle, but the airports are doing a much better job of showing their unmet needs this year than they ever have done before, and it's a huge and growing problem. And then finally, wastewater. Now, Congress again is weird. Drinking water is over in Energy and Commerce, but I'm working with the chairman over there. We want to do a major initiative on both wastewater and drinking water. We haven't done a SRF wastewater bill since 1987. And I'm trying, my committee is very bipartisan. I'm trying to work it out with the Republicans. I want a number that's bigger than they want to go to, but the needs are bigger even than the number I want. So I'm hoping to bring them around, and if you have if you have wastewater needs and you run into any of the Republican colleagues on my committee, you might tell them about your wastewater needs. So there's a huge potential coalition out there for this. I mean, we've got the Trucking Association tax us. We've got the independent truckers tax us. You get the U.S. Chamber of Commerce promoting taxes. We've got the AFL-CIO promoting taxes. We have a whole host of organizations promoting additional funding for infrastructure investment. And if we are absolutely relentless, and we have to be relentless. I've been pretty relentless, but I need a little more help here. Relentless. Talk to your representatives. Talk to your senators. Talk to anybody you know associated with the administration. Push hard. Like I say, they brought in this guy, Grover Norquist, and he said, no, you can't raise the gas tax. That's a tax. Well, there was such a relentless push from the inland waterway users 3 years ago that Grover redefined the diesel tax as a user fee. Well, guess what? The gas tax and the diesel tax, those are user fees. They're the most appropriate and today the only way to pay for these major investments we need. Many of you have done this. We need to do it at the federal level. We need to be a better partner, and I'm here to enlist you in that fight. So thanks very much for having me here today. I appreciate it.
So thank you again so much, Mr. Chairman. We are now adjourned. Thank you all so much for your patience.